everybody. What's up? Thank you for joining us today. You are watching Jenna X. Guys, today my special guest is Steve Wood. He is the president of Liberland Aid Foundation, and he is also the deputy U.S. representative for Liberland, in addition to holding a few other diplomatic titles. So for anyone who is not familiar with Liberland Aid Foundation, what Liberland Aid Foundation does is they are the humanitarian arm of the Free Republic of Liberland. Some of their works have included aid in Haiti, Serbia, Brazil, and El Salvador. So we're going to be discussing some of the different things that they've done so far, their mission, and what's in store for the future. Hey, Steve, welcome.
Hey, Jenna, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited for you to be here. I cannot wait to learn more about, everything that you guys have going on. But before we get into that, Steve, could you share a little bit more about yourself, your background, and how you got involved with Liberland?
Sure. So I'm actually a political science major. I have a bachelor's and a master's in political science, and I also have an MBA, but that's more recent. And I got out of school, went to DC because that was basically the only place in the US for a poli-sci major to get a job. And very quickly met some people who were kind of on the libertarian side of things who got me into this weird sport called underwater hockey. And one of my teammates was an FBI agent who was investigating the Silk Road. And he told me that I should look into this thing called Bitcoin. This was 2011. And we all did. Our entire team looked into this, and it's kind of spread throughout the underwater hockey community. And there's a lot of underwater hockey alumni who have gone on to start some very major projects that are kind of household names in Web3. And I knew a lot of those people pretty well. We saw each other pretty frequently. And that's kind of how I got into crypto. And after I got kind of fed up with politics, I went and moved into tech directly and started building other like techie related startup-y things. And then eventually transitioned into Web3 once I met someone who is now on the board of the Liberland Aid Foundation, who asked me if I could help them get a 501c3 set up in the US because I have a lot of experience with these sorts of things. Since I worked in DC doing a lot of stuff on nonprofits and the finance and technical side and stuff. So I was very well situated to get all that set up. I did all that for them, and then everybody who was participating in that asked me if I would help run it. So I did. That's basically how I got involved in Liberland, and then things just kept escalating from there. I started off as the vice president, and we had a president, but eventually I ended up being the president after people keep leaving the presidency.
Very cool. So they were like, you know what, Steve, you are it. You are president now. And so what does that mean, though? What do you do as your role?
Basically, I give out money. I make sure all of the bills are paid. I make sure that all of our like regulatory paperwork is up to snuff. I kind of go through potential projects that we want to fund and vet them for legitimacy, make sure they fit our criteria. And then I write the checks, or if it's a crypto transaction, I send the crypto. I manage the money for the organization and make sure that the money is actually getting to where it's supposed to go. And sometimes there's an in-person component, so I'll have to actually go somewhere and do something, but that's not as frequent, especially since COVID was one of our most active periods and nobody could go anywhere. So a lot of the time it's just been mostly digital work.
Gotcha. So why do you think that people should become citizens of Liberland?
Well, it really depends on your ideology. Honestly, not everybody should be a citizen of Liberland. I personally think that I know more people in my personal life that should not than should be. Like, we want to make sure that we're going to build a country of people who have similar minds, similar worldviews, similar outlooks. So if you're the kind of person who leans libertarian, has kind of a live and let live, that's the national motto, live and let live. If that's sort of your personal motto, like you don't think that people should be telling everybody else what to do, and I shouldn't be able to tell my neighbor that they can't build a garage on their house, that kind of thing, then you would probably fit in as a citizen of Liberland. And especially if you're particularly crypto savvy or you're like really into blockchain technology, because it's a blockchain country and everything that we're building is on blockchain technology. The mainnet for the L1 national blockchain is imminent. it's basically right around the corner, and that's going to manage everything. So if you like blockchain, you want to see how blockchain technology can build a better government, and if you want to participate in the building of a brand new nation from scratch, how often does that happen? Then this is probably something you want to look at.
I mean, I have to say I am actually sold on the idea of it. I love what you guys are doing, and I'm doing the exact same thing. I got my online, did the basic e-citizenship registration, and now I'm actually looking to see what I can add and contribute to the team, and hopefully be able to help work towards my citizenship. So super excited about that.
Yeah, technically you could buy citizenship, but I don't know anybody that has. Everybody who has citizenship has worked for it. And that's another thing that I really like about Liberland is that everybody has a stake in it. You know, we've all actually done work. We've all built the country in some way, shape, or form.
I think that adds so much more value to it too, especially if you're all working together towards something. This is a once in a lifetime, like you said, opportunity. So really, really excited to be able to help out. I want to hop on to some of the aid projects that you guys have already completed. And if you don't mind, can we start with El Salvador and tell us a little bit more about that project?
Sure. That was, I'm pretty sure, yeah, that was definitely our biggest project. So El Salvador, obviously, everybody knows El Salvador is the Bitcoin country, right? They made Bitcoin legal tender and they have their own national wallet and they have all these ATMs everywhere, although those ATMs have been having issues, and so has the wallet. That's actually one of the reasons that we helped out there with this specific project. The El Salvadorans themselves didn't necessarily take too well to the rollout of Bitcoin as a national currency or as a legal tender. It had a rocky road. So we were figuring that we could help out. And we decided we would do a fundraiser for El Salvador that was entirely in Bitcoin. This was the first thing we ever did in El Salvador. And we ran it, and we got quite a few donations, and they totaled over 1 Bitcoin. And if you recall, in 2021, Bitcoin was near all-time highs. When we got the money in, when we made the donation, it was still fluctuating, but it was around $60,000 at the time. I don't remember the exact value of the donation anymore, but it was a little over 1 Bitcoin, and it was around $60,000 per Bitcoin at the time. So we worked with our representative down there, our wonderful ambassador, Juan Carlos. He helped us identify a great way to make that money have a solid impact rather than just giving it to the government or something. So we donated it to the Children's Hospital, which, interestingly, I did not know this. It's the only children's hospital in that whole part of Central America, not just in El Salvador. Apparently, they don't even have one in Honduras or Guatemala or Nicaragua. And the next nearest one is somewhere way off in Mexico or something.
Wow.
So if you have childbirth issues, you have to come to this hospital. And this is something that personally has affected me a lot. Like, my first child was in the NICU for 2 weeks after he was born. And my wife does not take to labor and delivery very well. So having a children's hospital that is in working order is very important to me personally. So I really loved that we were able to make this contribution, because if I recall correctly, where they actually sent the money was to help build out basically a doubling of their NICU. So that was the main thrust behind that initial work in El Salvador. And we've done a couple follow-up projects as well. We have a partnership with the Duarte Salazar Foundation, and their president helped us identify where we would actually be doing this as well. He worked with our ambassador, Juan Carlos, to kind of grease the wheels to make sure that this was going to be a good deal. So that's what we did there. And we've done some follow-up work with them and some smaller work down in El Salvador as well. And we were going to do another bigger one, but we ran into some issues with the funding on that, thanks to PayPal not being very nice.
Can you elaborate any more on the PayPal situation?
Yeah, so PayPal basically robbed us. We had several $1,000s in donations sitting in a PayPal account. And after we got back from El Salvador, they just locked us out. And they said, without any explanation, they said that we were no longer, I don't even remember exactly what it was. I had to pull up the old emails, but basically that they didn't want us to be a customer of theirs anymore. They were locking our account, and they would send us the funds to our bank within like 180 days. It's been well over 180 days. Like, we got to we sent them emails, we wrote them I asked them all sorts of stuff like, okay, can you actually do this? Dead silence. At some point around the 1 year mark, 6 months after they were supposed to give us our money, they sent us a letter that basically said, screw off. And they would only talk to one person who was a previous president of the foundation who was off in Ukraine helping with the war effort. Or like he's got family in Ukraine, so he was over there. Not terribly accessible, not exactly the highest priority. So it's never been resolved. We've never gotten our money back. So PayPal just robbed us and prevented one of these big initiatives from ever going forward. So eventually, maybe we'll get that money back, or some other money will come in and we'll be able to do it. But the initial opportunity was lost because of that.
Wow. I mean, lesson learned though, right? At least it wasn't a larger amount, but I'd never do business with them again.
No, and every time I see, like, just me personally, every time I see a retailer, it's like, you have to use PayPal. Like, nope, sorry, go on somewhere else. I don't use PayPal.
Right. Yeah, no, that would absolutely leave a bad taste in my mouth as well. And I've heard numerous stories. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. So let's talk about other projects and aid that Liberland Aid Foundation has completed. What else have you guys done?
So our next biggest project, if we're just talking about like dollars impact and dollars spent and impact had, was a delivery of food to Haiti. We had this really good deal with Haiti going on. We had a really good relationship with the Haitian government before. You may recall the president of Haiti got assassinated like 2 years ago or so. I can't remember exactly how long ago it was, but we had a really good relationship with that government, and it's strained now because everything turned over. But we were starting to work with them to do ongoing aid deliveries, food specifically, to several villages where they were basically starving to death. So that was the next biggest one. We basically bought a whole bunch of food, chartered a shipping container, and put it on a boat, sent it down to Haiti, had a crew that was affiliated with the local Haitian Red Cross come out and distribute all of that aid to people who needed it. And we fed a lot of mouths for quite some time. That was our next biggest project. Then we have a lot of other kind of smaller projects. We've done a lot on that same island, the island of Hispaniola, as well, across the border in the Dominican Republic. We've helped with some aid for children's toys. We've helped with aid to do backpacks for children going to school that didn't have them. And that's just some smaller stuff that we've done in the Dominican Republic. We've also done a lot of COVID aid. COVID's not as big of a thing for aid anymore, but when it was at the peak, we had this project down in Brazil where we had a connection to a town where they had absolutely no support at all. Everything was locked down completely, and there was no social services. So some local nurses got together and we funded them and we used crypto for that one, actually, because we couldn't get dollars into Brazil. We couldn't get fiat in there. We had to use crypto. So crypto is good for this kind of thing. And they used that money to purchase food and other related aid items and hand deliver them out to various homes where people were unable to leave. So that was one really impactful project. At the start of the pandemic, we also bought a whole bunch of computers for some students in Serbia who were kind of in a poverty-stricken area, and they didn't have access to technology that they needed to do distance learning. We funded that and got, I don't even remember, I think I saw the pictures. They're like stacked to the ceiling computers, and like 50 computers from Dell that we shipped over there. And that was a nightmare, trying to get the logistics sorted out in the middle of a global pandemic when nothing could go anywhere. Right. But it worked out in our favor as well, because all of these kids got computers. They were able to learn, and we were able to have a pretty solid impact. But just a few examples.
That's great. And I love that you guys do so much for children. That speaks to my heart. So I love that.
Me too. I'm a father, and kids are important to me. They're the future. And if we're not raising a solid next generation, then what are we doing here?
Right. Now, so who goes out, I guess, to these different countries to find out what they need, how you can help?
Nobody really goes out to these physically going and traveling and surveying, although we have sometimes had someone go and bring back a report that says this needs to happen. Like what happened in Colombia, we had someone who was a Doctor with Doctors Without Borders, and he went down there and let us know that this was something that was really needed. And in that specific instance, we funded like cleft palate surgeries for like 30 kids in a town, and there's a common theme here with kids, apparently.
Yeah, this is great.
Maybe I'm directing all the money to kids. I don't know. But yeah, so sometimes we have something like that, but usually we have an area that we want, like something will happen. Like there'll be an earthquake or something, or there'll be a big news thing that El Salvador is having trouble with the Bitcoin rollout and they need some help, something like that. And we'll decide we want to do something here. And at that point, our contacts that are already in the area will generally tell us the kinds of things that we can do to help, kind of like what I mentioned with the Bitcoin in El Salvador. But that's kind of our standard MO. We don't help individuals. Like that's something that we have to push back on a lot. As part of our charter with the IRS, we cannot do a grant to a person for a thing. It has to impact a community. It has to be something that hits multiple people. We can't just give money to one person. It has to be, we can give money to a single person if it's going to be spent in the way that is going to benefit a lot of people, but I can't like fund somebody's college. Like that's not something that we can do.
Well, I don't think people would like you funding someone's college, when there's like a different impact, you could make in a larger impact. I think
right. That's just an example. And like one thing, a different example that has actually happened is we had one of our board members wanted to bring a family of refugees from Afghanistan to the United States. We couldn't do that. That was because that was direct funding for an individual purpose. Now, what we could have done was given the money to an organization to help fund multiple people to come over, but then we couldn't guarantee that it would go to that specific family. And I don't remember exactly what the connection was, but there was some reason for that specific family. So we had to turn that one down.
Wow, cool. So there's literally so much opportunity. I love this. I love what you guys are doing. I can just like visualize you guys even like building schools someday for kids to have an education that wouldn't normally get that, and just, really helping the future of some kiddos.
Yeah, I don't see why that wouldn't happen.
So what are some of the future goals of LAF?
Generally, our standard kind of ongoing mission is to just raise support for Liberland. Like make sure that people know that Liberland is not going to be this country of like selfish jerks who just want to hoard their crypto wealth and never give back to the rest of the world. So what we try to do is just find ways that we can show that you can have an impact, even if it's not for a large amount. Like some of those things that I mentioned, like the backpacks, that was under $1,000. Like not everything that we do is a big ticket item. A lot of them are crypto, and we have individual crypto donors who will throw like 10 Litecoin at us or something, and then we can carve that up and convert it to Bitcoin, so we can send it to people who can accept Bitcoin that can't accept Litecoin. So the general idea is to allow generosity like to basically flourish, if you see what I'm saying. And we don't have specific areas of the world that we need to focus on. We like to focus on the area around Liberland whenever we can. We try to do things in Croatia. We try to do things in Serbia. We try to do things in like Southeastern Europe as well, like just in the general area. But usually what we just do is focus on wherever we can have the biggest impact for the funds that we have available.
Sure. That makes complete sense. Definitely. Now, are there any issues in dealing with other countries with your donations?
Yes, we've run into several. Like I mentioned in Brazil, we used Bitcoin Cash in Brazil because we wanted to just pay lower transaction fees for one, but we couldn't send dollars. Like there was some sort of embargo. I don't remember what it was, but we couldn't at the time. It may be there, it may not. They turned over a government, so it may be different now. I haven't looked recently, but we were not able to send US dollars, and we had to use crypto. So that was a major problem. Another problem that we had when we tried to do this earthquake relief project in Croatia, children again. A children's hospital got demolished partially by an earthquake in Zagreb. And we tried to send money. We sent them a wire. They rejected the wire and they sent it back because we didn't fill out the right paperwork.
Oh,
And we reached out. We had a contact in like the administration at the hospital, and we had a government contact who like referred us to them to like get all the paperwork done. It had to be translated into Croatian to say, this is not paying a bill. We're not paying someone's bill here. We're just trying to help fund the reconstruction project for this part of the children's hospital that was destroyed by the earthquake. And they got the letter. We verified that, sent them the money, heard nothing for like a month. Then the wire came back, and then we heard that they couldn't accept it because they didn't know what it was for. Like, how do you not know what it's for? We did all this paperwork. we,
a
we,
nightmare.
yeah, it was not a pleasant experience. We're trying to help you rebuild an earthquake damaged hospital, and you're sending us our money back. So yeah, there are some instances where we've run into problems when usually we're able to work around them, but that's one case where we were not able to work around it.
Okay. Well, I love though that you be able to use the most part crypto with helping these countries out, because that's what it's all about, right? And that's what you're aiming to do, and
Yep.
to help with global adoption as well.
Yeah, that's another thing. We're trying to show people that there are things you can actually use your crypto for. It's not just a speculative investment and not financial advice. Don't invest in crypto, just use it, right? But you can actually use it and not just hoard it. And that's one of the things that we always hear pushback on is, there's no use case for crypto that you can't use fiat for. Well, I've just explained a couple,
Exactly.
that we were able to use crypto for that we were not able to use fiat for. And it's not just some, dark web, like secret transaction or something. No, it was like actually helping people like in the middle of a pandemic.
Well, you know what? I think though too with 501c3, that's right.
Yeah.
It, everything being on the blockchain, I mean, that's what people would want to see, right? Because then you know exactly where this money is going. There's no
Yep.
question.
In an ideal world, everything that we would do would be on chain so that people could audit it. Like we still have some money that keeps coming in for the El Salvador. We created a special wallet just for the El Salvador thing. And every now and then we'll get another small donation into it. And we've publicly said that all money will go to the hospital. And we've talked to them like, what do you want us to do with these recurring donations? And they don't want them right now. Like if they accumulate to a higher level, then we'll send them. Or if Bitcoin shoots up to $1 million, then we'll send them because it'll be a lot more money. But in the meantime, we can't just pilfer that money and go spend it on something else. We publicly declared that this money is for this, and anybody can audit it at any time. It keeps a charity very honest. You can't steal money. I can't go, pay my airplane tickets with this. I can't pay myself a salary with this. It's very clearly delimited for a specific thing, and everybody can see it.
And you just mentioned something, paying your salary like this. So I wanted to know how much of the donations go to operations, administration fees, salaries, et cetera, if you don't mind sharing.
Basically nothing. We have the lowest AFR, the administrative finance rate. We have one of the lowest ones I've ever seen, and I've worked with a lot of nonprofits, and ours is like 2%. And it would be lower if our donations were higher. The only reason it's as high as it is because we're not raking in the dough here. We're not $1 million charity. I think in our best year, came close to like 65,000, and nobody's getting paid. Nobody's getting a salary. Like we may have some expenses that get reimbursed if it's a very specific thing. Like with one guy who had to actually buy the backpacks, we reimbursed that expense, the Dominican Republic thing, because we had a guy on the ground. He bought the backpacks for the school. We reimbursed that. So that's the only like reimbursement thing that is. But even that's programmatic. Like 98+% of the money that comes in the door goes right back out in an aid project. Like I mentioned, nobody's getting a salary. I haven't made a single dime off of this. Like I'm not doing this because I'm getting rich or anything. And none of the directors are. It's all volunteer labor. So basically everything that gets donated to the foundation is used in a direct supporting role.
Beautiful. I am so glad to hear that. That is amazing. And it just shows that, everybody does believe in the project and what your mission is.
Yeah, I think like our biggest administrative expense last year, and it'll be the same this year, was our annual filing fee so that we don't get dissolved by the state.
Okay.
That's basically it.
The necessary. Okay.
Yeah.
So what has your experience been like so far with LAF?
It's been up and down. Sometimes we have really hectic periods. And like I mentioned, this doesn't exactly pay me. So it's just something I'm doing as a volunteer on the side to help out. And that means that it takes away from paying things. So when it gets really hectic, and this is true for basically everybody, people tend to kind of drop off because they have other responsibilities. They got bills to pay, they got mouths to feed. And at that point, it can be really hard. But for the most part, it's a pretty rewarding experience. And if nothing else, I know that I've helped have a positive impact in the world for everything that I've helped do here. Even if it hasn't been like getting out and physically building a hospital or something, I know I've helped support the construction of something that is saving lives in multiple countries. It warms my soul.
Yes.
And I think that anybody who participates on something like this would say the same. I think that you interviewed Joey, he's on our board. I think that he would probably have the same opinion. And I would say probably the same for all the other board members. And yeah, I can't speak for them, but I can't imagine that they feel bad about the time that they spend on this project.
No, I can tell they love it. One of my friends who actually is the one who told me about, Liberland and Liberland Aid Foundation. His name is Michael. And I know like he speaks so highly of it, but he and we've organized a charity event to like help out and an individual. It's not anything, whatever, who is in the community. And we love to do things where we can help give back. So I know that totally like tugs on his heartstrings as well. And that he absolutely loves what he's doing. So I'm happy that I'm learning so much more and be able to help with these things as well down the road. So
yeah, glad to inform and make sure that people know that there is actually valid ways to use all of your time and money that you may have accumulated in this space to do good in the world.
yeah, absolutely. That's what it's all about. What good, is the money and the power if you're not going to make a positive impact?
Even
That's
if you don't have, even if you're not like swimming in money, like a small amount can go a huge way.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So Steve, are there any other final thoughts that you have that we haven't covered yet that you want everyone to know about Liberland Aid Foundation?
I mean, if you have an idea for something that really needs some support that kind of follows with the criteria that I've already outlined, it helps a group of people, not just one individual. If it's a good bang for your buck, specifically if it's not in a very strong strong currency first world place where we'll a lunch would cost us like $10 or $20, but we can feed someone for instead $2 a day or something. If you have any ideas for projects like that, please don't hesitate to email us. laf@liberland.org is the email address. It's very short, very simple, very sweet. So if you have something that you think would be a good project, feel free to let us know. And that's the obvious thing that I have to say. And I have to give a fundraising plug because I am the president, which means I'm the chief fundraiser. So if you are interested in help funding us, then go to our website, liberlandfoundation.org, and you can go to our donate page and find some places where you can donate crypto, or you can reach out to us directly and let us know that you'd like to donate, if you'd like to give fiat, because again, PayPal's off the table. So we used to use PayPal, but we don't use them anymore. Those are really my two biggest plugs, my two, I would say, parting thoughts. I'm sure I could talk for a lot longer about a lot more things that we have in store or that we've done in the past, but I would just basically be digging into my memory and rambling for hours at that point.
Well, we do have, if you're watching us on YouTube, I have the link posted below for Liberland Aid Foundation, and on their website, it's awesome. You can go through, you can see projects that they've done. It tells you, how to get involved, how to donate, everything like that. So we have all of that information. Thank you so much for spending some time with me to go over everything. I know you are super busy, but it was an absolute pleasure to have you, Steve.
Yeah, it was a great pleasure being here too. Thanks, Jenna.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.